No go they do pass yourself.
We all know that popular saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. And it's the same for content creators and influencers because you're constantly pouring into an audience, you're trying to have fun, you're creating quality content and also trying to turn your creative passion into a business. And to balance all of the truth is you need the right information. So in this video, I'll be sharing podcasts that I listen to as a creative, podcasts that has helped me over time, and podcasts that I think that every creator should listen to. And if you watch to the end, I'll be sharing one particular podcast that talks about making money. And I know you want to make money, so make sure you watch to the end. So let's get right into it. So the first podcast on my list is the Content Creative Podcast. It's hosted by Emma Cortez and Maddie Kaineka. I'm not sure if I butchered the name, but the point is it's the Content Creative Podcast. They're both content creators, but I've been following Emma for a longer period of time. She's like one of those creators that used to be in the 9 to 5 space, but like now she's in the creative space and she's thriving, negotiating huge deals, working with top brands and sharing her knowledge as she goes. She was recently named LinkedIn's top 10 voices in the creator economy, so she's a big deal and she definitely knows her onions.
Anywho, the Content Creative Podcast is loaded with influencer marketing tips, branding, learning how to pitch to brands, just a lot of juicy things that every influencer would relate with. This is one podcast that I recommend to every content creator and influencer. I listen to this one religiously. And now to my favorite episodes. I'm going to just say two for the purpose of this video. One is how to free up time as a content creator. I love this episode because it was very practical. They shared a lot of tips that you can easily apply. If you feel like 24 hours of the day is not enough for you as a content creator, you should definitely listen to this one. So my second favorite episode is What Content Creator Life Stage Are You? This one will make you feel like no go they do pass yourself. It will help you out with comparison because you know where you are and know what you're supposed to be doing. I made a video about something like this recently. I will leave the link in the description box. The second podcast is Scriptures, Stories and Strategies by Nakia Shikes. God help me not to butcher that name because I feel it in my spirit, man, that I did. This podcast is really brilliant and unique because Nakia uses stories and scriptures from the Bible to tell marketing and business lessons in a way that can be applied into business strategies that can be used every single day. I love this podcast so much and I think that it's so brilliant. Like I said, it is basically focused on faith-based entrepreneurs who want to infuse scriptures into their marketing and run their business in a Christ-like way, and that's what I'm trying to do. So I love this podcast so much for literally helping me do that.
A few moments later.
Oops, spilled some water on my shirt. Also, she shares how to scale your business with your spiritual gift. I listen to some episodes and I go, how is she breaking this thing down to this point? But then again, the name of her company is The Marketing Prophet, so she's basically living up to that name. Definitely spirit-led if you ask me. Now, let's go to my favorite episode. So one that I really like is how to build your prayer strategy. Pray like Nehemiah. This episode is packed. I love it so much. Another one I really love is 3 ways to advertise your business like Jesus Christ. Guys, just hop on this podcast and you thank me later, okay? So the third one is the African Creator Podcast. This is hosted by Taya Aino and Wande Thomas. And in case you're wondering who they are, Taya Aino is a popular Nigerian YouTuber and filmmaker. He's one of my biggest motivations to start my YouTube channel. And if you watch my first video, you already know this. Wande Thomas is like the behind the scenes guy who works on all the cool creative projects. I really love this podcast and I love the fact that they are different perspectives. Taya is like the guy who's mostly in front of the camera, and Wande is like the behind the scenes guy. Yeah. So the African Creator Podcast is basically about the African creator economy. I love that it's so relatable because sometimes when you listen to like foreign podcasts, you can't necessarily relate to certain things they say because different experiences, different circumstances. But the African Creator Podcast literally brings it home, right? I remember listening to one episode where they said something about sharing your story as an African helps put value on the culture, and I really believe it. And I also love the fact that they bring in guests from time to time, mostly Nigerian creatives who are successful. Right now they have 2 seasons. I don't know when season 3 will be out, and I genuinely cannot wait. Now to my favorite episodes. One that I really love is the one with the lip gloss boy. It's called From Lip Gloss Boy to Crocs Ambassador. This episode is loaded. I have listened to Eddie at Social Media Week and I feel like this episode makes me love his craft even more. He's somebody who looks like it's all about vibe, but he's very intentional about his strategy and he's intentional about building brand equity. He also talks about reinventing yourself as a creator, how to switch things up so your audience don't get bored. He's really a smart creative. This is a very good episode. And my second best episode is Does Packaging Work for Creators? This one is a very funny episode. I really enjoyed it because they answer a lot of questions about if you package yourself well, brands even pay you more. Like how do you balance authenticity and packaging? Like, are you going to lose yourself because you're trying to, sell a particular persona? So go check out the African Creator Podcast. I know I talked a lot about a particular one, but it's probably that I love this podcast, so check it out. If you watch this point, just put packaging in the comment section. Let's confuse everyone. Okay? Now, the fourth podcast on my list is called the Influencer Podcast. This one I just found it recently. It's hosted by Julia Solomon. It's packed with a lot of influencer gems. It also focuses on solving a lot of influencer related content like monetization, creating online courses, cutting through the noise, working with brands, all of that good stuff, right? So most of these episodes are around 30 minutes ish. I've listened to about 5 of them, and my favorite episodes are this one called Impact and Brand Recognition. She was interviewing a Kenyan woman who has like a non-profit, but the woman was talking about how she was able to get impact and also make profit. I really like this one about how to keep your brand consistent. She talks about the difference between a brand and a business. It's a really good episode for influencers and content creators, so definitely check the Influencer Podcast out.
So the fifth podcast on this list is called Beyond the Metrics. It's hosted by Social Media Oga and Himeji. They are both Nigerian creators and I love their perspective to social media. I also like the fact that this podcast is not always so long, but it's so value packed. Beyond the Metrics is basically about creating beyond the metrics, but I like that they don't downplay the importance of metrics, right? There's just a good balance that I really enjoy. I also like the fact that there are different perspectives. Like I said earlier, this is a podcast that I feel like every creative should listen to, especially if you're in Nigerian, because it's so relatable. A lot of things you're saying are things that as a Nigerian you can definitely relate with. They recently came back with season 2 and I love the first episode, which is Trends and Virality. It's like one of my favorite episodes because everybody wants to go viral, but when you listen to that particular episode, you actually rethink going viral and what you should do before you go viral. I also love this episode I started, Why Are You on Social Media? It really emphasizes the why of being on social media. And the last one I would say is Let's Talk Money. It talks about how to chart brands, how to know your worth, all of those things. This is a really good podcast that every creative should definitely listen to. In case you didn't know, I recently hit 10K on Instagram and I've been celebrating with a series of giveaway. And so the winner of this week's giveaway is, drumroll please, Lulu of Lagos. Congratulations. Make sure you send me a DM on Instagram to claim your prize. Now to the podcast that will help you make some money. This one is called The Future with Chris Do. Apparently, The Future is already on YouTube. I didn't know that they had a podcast, so I only listen to them on YouTube. But apparently they have a podcast. But these ones are relatively long, like 1 hour plus, and they are mostly interviews. But I really, really value fact. They talk a lot about negotiating, branding, just a lot of things that will help you make more money and just position yourself better to earn more money. One of my favorite episodes and interview in this podcast is called Put Something on the Line with Sean Cannell. Sean Cannell is the CEO of Think Media. I really enjoyed this episode and I like the fact that they had a lot of applicable tips. He shared a lot of real life stories. It was a very, very nice episode. Yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a thing or two, and I hope you listen to this podcast because it's really helping me as a creative, and I think they will really help you as well. See you next time. Bye bye.